And we are live to kick off everyone's weekend again because hashtag TQIF. It is Friday night. So, Brian, Starfleet Boy, how are y'all doing?
Pretty good. It's Friday, so got my Star Trek game for Sunday in pretty good shape.
Excellent. It was a long week, but so I'm glad to be here. I'm excited about today's episode.
Yeah, I've already heard some of your thoughts on it, so looking forward to talking about that with you.
Excellent.
I'm gonna tweet us out if you want to retweet it.
Oh yeah. Tweet that tweet. I like that there's this like beginning part when we don't have an audience and then the show officially begins. Like I tried that on Starfleet Boy this time.
Yeah, how did that work for you?
Good, I liked it. It was very casual and informal. By the way, I didn't watch Stargate either for the same reason. And then a young man who I was courting, I started watching it for him, and then I loved it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's like
it was a sexually transmitted show.
Yeah.
We didn't, unfortunately.
The guy who cooked me on Stargate would be, I can imagine he's a bit homophobic. He would have been right there. If he heard that joke, I could just see him jumping up and down.
Our relationship never became sexual, so it wasn't sexually transmitted, but it was still good. It was a good courtship, I'll say that.
Oh yeah. I'll leave you with a smile. Is that how the song goes?
It sounds like you got something out of it with Stargate.
It's true.
Stargate is a wonderful show. So.
It's true.
Okay. Well, we have a couple people watching, so we will go ahead and get started with the show, with our live stream of the Tex-Trek podcast, talking about Lower Decks. I'm Fathery.
This is Brian.
And this is Starfleet Boy.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 115th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time. And tonight we will continue our Star Trek Lower Decks Season 1 episode coverage by discussion. I can't talk today. Discussing Episode 7, Much Ado About Boimler, written by M. Willis and directed by Barry J. Kelly.
I just realized both of you guys are in Texas, but Florida's invading Tex-Trek now.
Yeah, we have a Floridian.
I'm so sorry.
What? Florida man makes everything better.
Starfleet Boy is the Florida man.
Oh no, please.
Starfleet Boy by day, but Florida man by night.
Oh,
Florida man strikes again.
Yes.
Oh boy. I try. Oh man.
But there has been a regular Star Trek crew member from Florida with Trip Tucker. We still haven't had a regular Texan on any Star Trek show, so I will continue to be bitter about that.
Wait,
make it happen.
No one of note's been from Texas?
No.
Wow. That's not cool.
Yeah,
I
it's
think that definitely needs to be
frustration of
something
mine.
we.
even though Star Trek was created by a Texan, Gene Roddenberry, born in El Paso,
Yeah.
Texas.
Well, sure. Maybe that's got to count, right?
Robert April. When they finally bring Robert April to screen, I pitch.
But he has like a Brit accent on the animated series.
Doesn't matter. We can retcon it. Come on.
Just go and redub it.
He was taught how to speak English by British people. It worked for Picard. So.
Yeah, sure. We have like a Frenchman with a Brit accent. So
it's true. We could definitely have a Texan with a British accent as well.
Just lean into it, have all these people from all over the place with British accents.
Let's talk about this episode, though. Much Ado About Boimler. Strange title, because the episode had much ado about some other folk as well. And I kind of think of the Mariner story a bit more when I reflect back on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still get confused by the hierarchy of A, B, and C plot, and how do you apply that to lower decks? But Boimler's definitely seemed to be pretty far down the alphabet on this episode.
Yeah, I'd put him at the B. He's the B plot. B for Boimler. B for Brad Boimler.
Yeah.
How about that?
I mean,
if
you go with the...
Yeah. No, sorry. I think you're absolutely right. It was Boimler and then... it was Mariner and then Boimler's story for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're each going to give our opening statement, just kind of general thoughts on this episode, and then we'll go and kind of break it down in much greater detail. But I'll kick things off and go first. I stand by my statement from last week that I feel like the people making the show really know how to write these characters now. I think Boimler and Mariner specifically are a bit more fine-tuned, and as Brian suggested last week, maybe that is just character growth over the season. But Boimler and Mariner both they don't go as like extreme as they did in some of those early episodes. I know that was kind of off-putting to some people. I had fun seeing Boimler paired up with Tendi for an episode. I kind of wish there was more back and forth between them, and I'm glad that they're kind of breaking up the format of not just having Rutherford and Tendi together and Mariner and Boimler together. So I liked that. I really loved the Mariner stuff with the guest character we're introduced to, Captain Ramsay, and I thought they were really cute together, and I loved watching the two of them play off of one another. And the story, though, like the narratives here, like last week, they were a little meh to me. I do like this episode more than last week's episode, but I like everything else. I like the atmosphere of the show and the characters enough that, like I said last week, even if the narrative they're telling doesn't blow me away, I still have a good time watching this just because I really like these characters and checking in on them every week. So, Brian, what about you?
I guess the biggest takeaway that I had as far as what makes this episode different than all the others, which is kind of how I try to approach this question, is that as far as the Mariner plot line went, this was the first time where I felt we had a story that was strong enough, kind of an external and internal story that was strong enough that you could have stripped out the jokes and you could have still made an episode out of this. You would need a different B plot than the freak thing in the shuttle, but you'd have to have something else there to get it out to 40 minutes. But as an A plot, you could take those jokes out, and I think that story would still be really cool to watch as a live action drama, dark and gritty discovery kind of thing or something. And I think that still would have made for a great story, both for the external journey that Mariner and Ramsay take and the internal journey that they take. And that was, so I was impressed, because I feel like every other episode we've seen really would have felt either very generic or just wouldn't have had much meat on its bones if you stripped out all the jokes. So yeah, that was by far the most impressive thing I think about this, is they come up with a story so good that you don't need the jokes to make it work. And I really liked the development and revelations about Mariner, which I'm sure we'll get into as we talk.
Did you like the jokes in this one? You said that you feel like they weren't necessary, but I actually felt like this one was a little funnier than average. I think I chuckled more.
Yeah, no, the jokes were good. The jokes were fine. I guess there was, given some of the jokes involving Mariner took on a slightly almost darker shade to them by the end of it, but that is kind of pushes against the comedy of it. But yeah, I'm not saying this one wasn't funny. I'm just saying there was enough meat on this bone that you didn't need the funny to enjoy it. Yeah,
so it was just like extra. I don't want to say icing on the cake. It was like having a scoop of. It was having a scoop of ice cream on top of your cake.
Yes, yeah,
like,
well,
cake
that's a
is
good
good
reference.
without ice cream, but it's even better if you have some. Ice cream.
Yeah. If all the other Star Trek is ice cream and
melting,
this is cake, and Lower Decks is cake, then we got some ice cream
on a hot brownie. It was melting ice cream on a hot brownie.
Yeah,
nice.
It's like...
Starfleet boy, what was your take on this? Give us your.
Well, I feel like I am kind of the child of your two opening statements because I agree with basically what both of you were saying. I think the only thing like that I would add for myself is that like the observation you made about how like it was the most kind of episode that you could strip like the jokes down to a minimum and it would still be a great episode, and you could maybe turn it into a full episode. I totally agree with that, and I thought what was cool was it kind of was really emphasized in the bog scene, like what the way that they were all operating and like really being very like professional and efficient. It reminded me like of like a really skilled crew, and Mariner was like completely just like unprepared and like the worst. And I was like, oh, so it's the Cerritos specifically. This is a ship full of fools, and that made it funnier. And also, I just like that idea.
Alexandra in the chat is asking, is there a scientific sociological explanation for the existence of the Florida man?
I don't feel qualified to answer this question.
That's like a whole stream. We have to do a special, a Tex-Trek special. I don't feel like that's something we could talk about on this episode.
Maybe we'll put a pin in that and revisit it another day, another star date.
Yes.
Pin put.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and give the summary of this episode by reading the synopsis for it off of Memory Alpha and then just kind of expanding on that with spoilers. But the synopsis is, Mariner tries to impress her best friend from Starfleet, who is now a visiting captain. Boimler is sent to a Starfleet medical ship after a transporter accident puts him out of phase. And I'm just going to add to that by saying that's inaccurate. Mariner actually tries not to impress her friend, but look like an idiot to avoid promotion. And
I suppose you could argue it's a type of impressing. It's just, what are you trying to impress upon them?
She's definitely trying to leave a specific impression. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You're right.
Admittedly, that's not how it's usually used.
Yes. So I'll give you that one on a technicality. But yeah, despite that, she's still able to be a badass and save the crew of another ship. And Boimler, along with Tendi, go to meet some bizarre, freakish victims of crazy, weird Star Trek sci-fi accidents. And we'll just go ahead and kind of go through the episode, not exactly scene by scene, but kind of close to that. And start off by talking about that opening with the Cerritos lower deck personnel tired from a long day's work and then being assaulted by this playful dog. I think, what kind of dog do you think this is? Is it a blonde Labrador is what it looked like to me?
Yes.
Or is it a golden retriever? I don't think it's Shaggy.
Oh, wait.
Golden retriever.
Yeah, no, it's like a Labrador, I think. Or it could be a mix. There's a little golden in the dog.
This is another question I'm not qualified to answer.
I think like the dog like jumping on everyone when they're trying to go to bed and then just being like super excited was either like cute if you like dogs or like, oh yeah, I hate dogs because they're like so needy and annoying if you're like an anti-dog person, I guess. I'm very pro dog. I like dogs, but I thought this dog.
I'm pro dogs too. We had a rat terrier for 15 years, and she was wonderful. Her name was Indiana.
I do not have any
Indiana
animosity or dislike of dogs, but I'm definitely a cat person.
We are now a cat household.
They must have had a really rough day. They're all going to sleep without putting on their PJs. So
They never wear PJs. They always sleep in their uniforms.
I mean, that's not how they did it on Next Gen.
I know.
I don't know. Data slept in his unit.
That's true. People often like call Starfleet uniforms like pajama looking, so they've taken it to a whole new level.
I suppose these could be their pajamas. They just happen to look like the uniforms. Do they have their boots?
Identical?
No, they still have the boots on, don't they? So that doesn't quite work. And plus, Marino's still got her sleeves rolled up and the flap open and all of that.
Well, it would be great to use the same animation model.
Yeah. No, now I want this joke. I want them saying, well, we better get changed for bed. And they all walk out. And then they come back in what is almost identical outfits. And they climb into bed and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Just the shoes are missing and otherwise, and the comm badges or something are patches or something. That would be hilarious.
I think it's never explicitly stated, but like the material that the spacesuits are made out of is like some kind of super, like it's so thin, but they can be in like, a variety of different environments in it, and it's like very durable, and so you could technically sleep in them.
I'm sure you could.
Yeah, I think.
And honestly, if they had the shoes off, I might just assume those were their pajamas.
Worf said one time, that like Starfleet uniforms are designed to be like, they're always like comfortable and pretty efficient clothing, no matter what environment you're going into. It's like something extreme where you need like
I just watched that episode. Like
it's the Risa one, right?
Yeah. It was Wednesday. I watched that one Wednesday.
Oh, that's right.
That one plays way different in this new political climate, by the way.
Yeah, I can see that.
Last time I watched it was like 2008 or something. It plays very differently now.
What do y'all think when this dog just turns into like a monster from John Carpenter's The Thing?
That's what that was like really scary.
I laughed. I thought it was great. I was laughing hard. I was like, we finally get a thing monster in Star Trek. About darn time. The Geordi morphing dog was just not doing it for me. This finally got where it needed to be. And I did love the explanation for it. I was like, okay, this is some bio android that Tendi built.
She knew more about DNA than dogs, so this thing is weird, and she doesn't understand that it's like not dog behavior.
Yeah. Well, what I liked on the front end, and then was arguably disappointed at the end, was that in Star Trek we see AI. Everyone's always trying to make sapient AI, but no one's aside from the exocomps. We never see something that's kind of alive but not fully sapient. Like there's a whole range of animals on Earth that are alive and but not sapient. And so to have somebody build a construct that is distinctly not sapient and can't even talk and stuff, I was actually like, oh wow, cool. We finally get to see something, because I think the exocomps were the only other one I could think of that's comparable to that. And then of course they have a twist at the end that kind of undoes all of that.
Yeah, the stuff with the dog I thought was pretty well handled, though, and the way that they paced the gags with it, where they had like a consistent escalation. So every time you see this dog, it's doing something crazier than what it did before, and that makes it so much funnier, especially when we get to the end and see like the final form.
And the fact that they generally don't react to it. It's kind of they just look at it and roll their eyes, and kind of that made it a lot funnier to me. Yeah. I love surrealist humor, and this was very surreal. Just having a conversation play out, and the dog goes by doing something bizarre in the background or the foreground. I love the dog. I was kind of sad when they got rid of the dog. I could have had that thing wandering through scenes for the rest of the season, and it wouldn't have bothered me.
Well, there's another example of tech suits, tech space suits in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yes. This episode borrows a few plot elements from the Next Generation episode Chain of Command. Specifically, the idea of 3 prominent crew members going on a they don't say Black Ops in this, but they're wearing like the Black Ops uniforms.
Yeah,
they're like training, they're getting ready, and there's black TNG uniforms that you use when you go do stealth missions.
Yeah,
command.
And it's impossible to find a good photo, at least I haven't been able to, of those outfits that is well lit so you can actually see any details. Yeah.
There's some with like the hoods down, but yeah.
I don't even think I've seen one with the hood down. I eventually ended up turning to the Worf action figure to get a good idea of what they actually look like, because they just look like black blobs on screen. But it's clear the guys who made the action figure had some good, well-lit photos to detail up the action figure. Or they just made up a bunch of details. I don't know.
Yeah, because they are... experts in the germination of roulotte seeds. They were chosen to go on the seed planning mission, I guess. So they get a visiting captain like Jellicoe was in Chain of Command.
And Mariner actually mentions Jellicoe. We could end up with someone like Jellicoe or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of like maybe Jellicoe is just like I don't know about y'all, but like when I was in school, there were like certain like substitute teachers that would like recur, and like we would all like, if a teacher told us like they were going to be out, we would always like hope like we didn't get like the certain substitute teachers like we don't like.
Do you know how it works in the actual military? I mean, there has to be times when like a captain and crew have to go on like a mission, and the ship still needs to be steered, right?
I don't know. I suspect they just leave the captains in charge of their ships, but
yeah, like it is kind of weird in Star Trek, because normally you just put like the next highest ranking officer in charge. But
yeah, it's true.
I was thinking like, well, their top three are probably their same structure as Voyager. You have captain, first officer, and then your security officer. So maybe if you take all three of them off and it's like planned ahead of time, you would want to bring on the visiting captain.
And I guess Jellicoe actually a babysitter captain? Is that like his position?
He had his own ship, I think. They talked about like
I think he was just I think the gist of Jellicoe was that you needed him on the Enterprise because not only were there senior members of the ship's bridge crew that were on this mission, but the mission that they had to go on was so critical that you needed a more experience.
They wanted him to deal with the Cardassians.
Yeah, but the Mariner thinks they might get Jellicoe, which implies that Jellicoe does lots of
she
stuff.
said someone like Jellicoe.
Well, yeah, but she still brings it up as if that's like a probability or like a thing. Was Jellicoe's service on the Enterprise that notorious that all of Starfleet knows how terrible it was?
I think so.
She's hung out with Riker. She's hung out with Riker, and he's like talked about it. Like, yeah, there is just no joy under his command.
Okay, I guess that could make some sort of sense. I like the idea that he's a full-time subs captain. I kind of like that idea.
Well, the Enterprise crew were super famous, and once it got out on the subspace that like Counselor Troy started wearing a uniform, that's a big deal. Like I feel like Jellicoe would have definitely made the subspace chatter.
Who put that woman in a uniform? This man did.
It's true. But to defend this captain, what was her name again? Ramsay. She was kind of critical because they were doing that bog mission, and so you needed like another experienced crew. I feel like for this side mission that they were doing. That's
like a lower level mission, I think, like having to fix a giant water filter is basically what they're doing. She's like a good candidate to head up that mission. So yeah, I think that's it kind of parallels. Whereas in TNG, it's like, okay, we need like this hard ass negotiator to go deal with the Cardassians, and they get Jellicoe. Here, it's like, okay, we need someone to go make sure this water filter system gets back up and running soon. So it translates. I want to talk about like Rutherford and his contribution to the episode with his transporter shenanigans and him and Boimler hanging out and playing around with the transporter. Rutherford was trying to make it beam you 0.7 seconds faster.
Yeah.
And I find that hilarious because it's like, like the Starfleet tech nerd would be like that concerned about like, I could make it just like 0.7 seconds faster. It'd be like so much more efficient, and it'd be just a better transporter. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out how to make it work.
As somebody who was always annoyed at how fast Enterprise's transporters worked versus TOS transporters, I can say that getting these numbers correct is important.
I think that was just more fast-paced television, but
Speaking of technobabble, where are the pattern buffers? Are they like in the next cargo bay over?
Could be. There's a lot of. If we're looking at a visual of it now, there are like a bunch of cables running around. So.
This is like some kind of rig that he's mocked up to test the transporter efficiencies. So I think it's like it calls back to like it would have been interesting if it calls back to like the Fly, right? Like, going from one pod.
Fly. I was like, oh, here we go. We've got the thing, and we're gonna have the Fly all in one movie. Body horror everywhere.
I think this is a great Halloween episode. Lower Decks is not going to make it to Halloween, but I would rewatch this episode as part of my Halloween festivities because there were a lot of these like kind of lighthearted horror elements in this one.
I suppose
I would make a good Halloween episode too. I had the exact same thought when I watched it initially.
I suppose the pattern buffer, they could be using the shuttlecraft's pattern buffer, which just bunts the question down the road to where the hell is the pattern buffers in a shuttlecraft. But yeah, the shuttles are supposed to be able to have transporters, so he could be using that.
I really enjoy the fact that it's a rig, like a, I don't know, what would you say to Geordie rig nowadays, right? Not a Jerry rig, but
I can Geordie rig something. Just give me a moment, Captain.
But it looks like something that like Geordie or Data would rig up, like what you said with the shuttlecraft's pattern buffer and having this like bare bones transporter. Oh, I lost your audio. What? You're on mute, Fathery.
Yep.
My bad.
There we go.
But yeah, this wasn't quite rigged up correctly because we see the accident that happens with Boimler.
I loved this gag. I was cracking up because of the noise. The fact that the transporter noise would follow you.
That was so funny. That annoying.
Yeah. Because it's so, I like the meta-ness because it's the sort of thing you would never do on a TV show because it would drive the audience nuts. So you can't make it an ongoing thing. But then they just say, no, we're going to make it an ongoing thing.
Yeah, that's kind of like that, like Adult Swim style animated comedy anti-humor, where it's like you take something that's like not funny, but then like you like leave it on screen and let it linger for so long that somehow that makes it become funny.
Yeah, there's a certain surrealness to the fact that this unfunny joke is not going away.
and this joke is just so like this joke is 1,000% specific to Star Trek. Like you couldn't pull this off easily on any other, on any other thing like except on a Star Trek show, which is really funny.
If you're familiar with Star Trek and Star Trek transporters, which most people who enjoy pop culture today, they know, oh yeah, Star Trek, they beam people up. If you know anything about Star Trek, that's probably the one thing you know. And so like the idea of like, okay, what if you got beamed back, but only like 99% and you're still like not quite materialized all the way? You're like, yeah, that's like a very understandable joke.
And the noise. This is like that's that ice cream on the warm brownie. That's what
I don't quite know where the whole idea of being out of phase as depicted on Star Trek has so many plausibility issues anyway that it's kind of hopeless to try to break down on a plausibility level what's going on with him. You just have to say, okay, he's kind of there, but not all there, and he's noisy.
Well, he's only off by 1 millicochrane, which I'll talk about that when we get to our Gorn eggs at the end of the show. But let's talk about like what's going on the bridge, where Mariner is still upset about having to deal with the babysitting captain. And then when the captain finally does arrive, she is surprised to see that it's actually her old academy buddy who has already ascended to the rank of captain. So Mariner is relieved to see that, and they kind of like reunite and celebrate. And I thought it was cool that she also like brought her own staff with her. We have Captain Ramsay, but we also have like these other people. So I just want to like mention them. But we have
So she left her. So they have to get some substitutes for her ship too.
Well, maybe
Or
her
they
ship
are-
is like on leave or something. Maybe her ship
Yeah.
is like a star base on leave.
Yeah, that would make some sort of sense.
Yeah, we have a Lieutenant Warren is a Trill, Lieutenant Pratchett is a Rigelian, and Lieutenant Durga is a Vulcan. And
Yeah, we haven't
I
seen a
love
lot of
the shot
Rigelian.
of them. They're so cool. Sorry. Go on.
We just haven't seen a lot of Rigelian in Star Trek in general. They always get mentioned, they never get seen. So that was
yeah.
cool.
I actually didn't like this Vulcan a ton because her voice, and I see Stress Free K is commenting on that, but he says he loves this Vulcan woman, but some people don't seem to like her voice. What's so wrong with her voice? Well, Stress Free K, I thought like some of her line delivery sounded fine, but a lot of it just sounded like very robotic, like she was a computer, and that's not really how Vulcans talk.
Well, there's room for different types of Vulcans.
That's true, but
that is the least interesting choice you could make.
Yes, because Vulcans do have like their own like very like stoic and cold style, but it typically doesn't sound mechanical. So that was my issue with it. Stress Free K.
I watched it again before this, and I don't agree. Like I feel like she sounds like a Vulcan to me, but I guess I always have thought Vulcan sounded robotic, except for Spock. Like he's the only one that I never thought was robotic.
Well, actually, who's the guy who played Ambassador Saval on Enterprise? I can't think of that actor's name.
The guy from Alien Nation.
Yeah, Alien Nation. If someone figures it out, comment and let us know because I want to give him a shout out. But he actually said how like right before they went to shoot the first episode of Enterprise, he knew what Vulcans were, but he hadn't like watched much Star Trek, and he was just thinking of like, oh yeah, I guess you just play this guy with like no emotion. But then like he wasn't like really sure, and he said something like Rick Berman like right before they started shooting. He's like, I don't really know if I understand Vulcans or know how to play a Vulcan. And like Rick Berman's like, what? You're just now saying something? Which is typical Rick Berman. But then Rick Berman like explained to him, he's like, well, like Vulcans have emotions, but they're always like subduing them. So you do have like a little bit of flair that you want to put on the language and like a little bit of nuance on certain pieces of dialogue. Don't sound like a robot. And that he was like instructed not to talk like this.
I guess I think of you're right. Like it's not. Maybe I'm being too lenient, but I thought it was fine. It was Gary Graham. What's that?
I said you too lenient on Star Trek.
I know. I know it's true.
Mr. ranks everything a 10 out of 10.
I gave this one the highest score. A 10.7.
I did. This is the beginning, really effectively, I think, of the development we get, or at least the revelations we get about Mariner. Most notably, the underlying implication that if she'd wanted to, not only would she not be an ensign, she could have been a captain by now if she'd put her mind to it. Which, I mean, it's always hard to tell how old are people when they're cartoons, and I don't think they've quoted any ages but I think Boimler's 1 year out of the academy, right? Did they say that?
Yeah.
So I think Boimler is probably like early or mid 20s.
Yeah.
He's like season 1 Harry Kim.
Yeah.
Maybe season 2 Harry Kim.
Yeah.
And I think Mariner's a little older though. Even though I know Boimler said that we're like the same age, but I think that was incorrect. I think Mariner is like mid 30s or closer to my age. The actress Tawny Newsome, I think she's like 37 or something like that. So I think Mariner is like 33, 34, 37, somewhere in that range.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so the idea, it continues this I'm complicated idea by the implication she could have been a captain by now if she'd really tried, or at least a commander, even if we assume that Ramsay had a lucky break, I mean, I guess you could go the whole Kelvin universe and anyone can be a captain in 24 hours, but setting that aside, and so I thought that was interesting, and they developed that as the story goes on some more. So
that Kirk had a lot of help from old old Spock from our, prime.
That's my
whatever.
headcanon too.
Yeah, it's like that mind meld encompassed everything you could possibly need to know.
Oh, I think he just bribed the admirals, but
yeah,
make that man captain, or I won't tell you about the whale probe. What whale probe?
Right.
Trust me, make him a captain.
Nice.
So yeah, but I liked her. I loved Ramsay and Mariner, and it was nice to see somebody that Mariner's not trying to diss, and actually likes, and is who's also not too bizarrely weird. She liked the Klingon, but the eye patch Klingon. But
would you say we got a peek at the real Mariner? Like, did we get like a real insight into who the real Mariner is?
Yes,
they explained a little bit more about her backstory and why she's in the situation that they love to talk about but hate to explain. So they're kind of always teasing there's more to her story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that we got another layer of onion peeled back. That was one of my favorite things about this episode.
The gag we mentioned a second ago with glowy Boimler. What was the funniest part of that to me is like when he comes onto the bridge, and of course it's like, okay, everyone's going to turn their head and notice this. And he tries to play it off like it's no big deal. That was hilarious to me. It lasts about 10 seconds before he's kicked off the bridge.
And I did like that the captain sends him to sickbay. I was like, no, there's clearly something wrong with you. Go to sickbay. I was like, yeah.
The captain would do.
Yeah. I've had so many places where the captains have acted weird in this show that I'm kind of glad that it felt nice to have one act in a familiar way.
You know what else is great is that they actually called it sickbay instead of medical.
Oh, right.
Because ever since Star Trek 09, they always say medical in most of the shows and movies.
That's interesting.
So I like that they actually just said sick bay. And I think they wrote that because that allowed Boimler to have the joke in his comment back when he's like, but that's where the sick people are. But yeah, Dave, who's not with us tonight, but our friend Dave has presented the theory that the term sick bay is kind of gross and outdated, and people don't really want to talk about it because it sounds like, oh, that's where you keep all your plague infected victims. They say medical instead.
I was accepting of infirmary. DS9 said infirmary, right?
Yeah, when they're on the Defiant, they call it sick bay.
Yeah, I assume it relates to the same reason you have a cargo bay, you have a sick bay. It's a nautical ship thing of some sort. I don't know anything beyond that, but I assume it ties in, weapons bay, this bay, that bay, Michael Bay.
But
Boimler Bay, that's the ultimate alliteration.
Luckily for the audiences trying to enjoy this and not be driven insane by the annoying noise, Rutherford is able to cure that part.
We get some more of the Doctor, who I want a whole episode about this character, or at least one that features her for more of the episode. She's always
kind of Dr. Tiana.
Tiana, she just gets these short cameos, but she's awesome in all of them.
She is, it's true.
Well, a lot of people call her the Cation Pulaski, but I think she's more like the Cation McCoy. He was a bit more gruff than Pulaski.
Yeah,
they're both kind of cranky, but McCoy a bit more so. In fact, I would say I would say she's even grumpier than Dr. McCoy.
Kelvin McCoy, or maybe a step beyond even that, because Kelvin McCoy is definitely a bit ruder.
She's whatever state McCoy was in when he beamed aboard the Enterprise in the motion picture, and was complaining about the reserve activation clause. That's where she's at. She's that McCoy.
It's a good McCoy. I don't know if that's the real McCoy though. But yeah, Dr. Tiana is going to send Boimler to the farm, which is a new contribution to the Star Trek universe, the Division 14, where the untreatables, the uncurables are sent. And also the dog, which Tindy has named the dog, is going. And again, we get another bit of escalation of the dog weirdness, where
this is such a good gag.
Oh my God. Head splits open and the eyeballs of the dog fly out with bat wings. truly insane. Starfleet Boy, your case that you're trying to make of this being like a Halloween episode, I think this is great evidence to present to make that argument.
Well, I think they've said it was supposed to be broadcast later in the year. Maybe this was originally going to wrap around a little closer to the end of December.
Oh, maybe. Oh my gosh.
Maybe.
That is nightmare fuel, as Ketwalski likes to say.
But we see Ramsay and Mariner spend some time together in the ready room, which has an added layer of comedy to it when you know that, like, yeah, Mariner is like messing around with all her mom stuff. So that's one of the reasons why she's so like dismissive of like the importance of any of this. They're like, oh, it's so stupid, Mom, that you have like this glowy pineapple and all of this other like stuff in here. Ramsay presents the offer to Mariner. Is like, okay, I'm going to make you the acting first officer while I'm here, and
in true Kelvin style.
Yes, in true Kelvin style, where everyone gets promoted way too fast. But I also like that they brought up, because they haven't brought it up in a while, but they brought up the thing between Commander Ransom and Mariner, where I guess like somehow like Captain Ramsay suspected there might have been something going on between the two of them, because she says, have you seen Commander Ransom's photon torpedo? Not terribly clever dialogue, but I like that they're like reminding the audience that, like, oh yeah, like there was like some chemistry between the two of them. I thought it would be an interesting thing to explore in a future episode.
It kind of makes, like, it's also kind of like, you know, he is a hunk, like a cartoon hunk, you know, so I think like I would talk with my old friend about it. Like if I knew, I'd be like, oh, have you seen it? I like that. That was really like kind of funny moment too. It's good.
Even though the end of the episode, Ramsay does not seem that interested in Ransom, but maybe because she knew that like her friend Mariner had the hots for him. But our friend PJ Boat Wreck is in the comments. He says, "I bet it's real big." Okay. Another fan theory this show has generated, I suppose.
So PJ, you think it's a Mark 8 torpedo as opposed to a Mark 5 or a Mark 6 torpedo, if I'm reading you correctly, right?
Let's hope it's a Kelvin torpedo, because the torpedoes in prime timeline are actually too small to fit a Leonard Nimoy into. So it would be nice if you could actually have a torpedo, a bigger one, the bigger ones from Kelvin. So
it's true.
What did y'all think of Mariner's reaction after Ramsay makes her first officer, and then we see that kind of like nervous look in Mariner's face where she's like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this after all?
The first time I was eating dinner when I watched this, so I actually missed that look. And so I was much more surprised at the end how everything unfolded, because I had not got the foreshadowing. But I mean, yeah, it's you wanted some honest Mariner. There's some honest Mariner. What was it Peter Capaldi says about hugs? You never can see the other person's face when you give someone a hug.
That's true. Yeah. That is interesting. I did catch the foreshadowing, but I also just felt like kind of this has been setting up since like pretty much the beginning, is that she has some kind of like fear or loathing, maybe even, of just like accepting responsibility beyond, oh, sorry for the noise, accepting responsibility beyond just like an individual contributor, if you will. She doesn't want to lead like team. She doesn't want to like, she just has some kind of fear. So I don't know. I think they're like, they keep giving us these moments, and I thought that this look was like, I maybe this is reading too far into it for a cartoon, but like I thought this look was like very touching because it like kind of remarked on that. Like it's like a subconscious way to make you kind of feel empathy for the character even more.
Yeah, and her reluctance to accept promotion and accept more responsibility, I had never connected the dots before this episode, but it is definitely...
You had never connected the pips.
Connected the pips, yeah. She's
nice.
And that remains unconnected to any others. But I had never drawn this conclusion before, but we've seen this in Star Trek before. we've seen characters avoid
Riker.
promotion before.
Yeah.
See, it was a big thing in Next Generation because your captain and your first officer both turned down promotions.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Kirk was always trying to get away from that admiral's chair.
Yeah, and then our other big captain of the franchise, Kirk, spent from 1979 to 1986, trying to get demoted again in all of his appearances.
Well, when you put it that way, I guess it's a tradition.
1987.
Now I have this mental image of maybe if I get a bunch of the cadets killed, they'll demote me. Like that's dark as hell, but I don't believe that. But I'm just flashed in my head.
I have to look up whatever PJ said in the comments. Hypengiophobia. I'm sure it means
comments. People watching us live. PJ has said Mariner clearly suffers from whatever that word is.
Hypengiophobia.
Okay. Well, you look that up. We're going to talk about.
All right. Nice.
Division 14 ship. And
that is a weird looking ship, man.
But it is also an NX, so I can accept it being like a weird experimental ship.
It looks like a drag racer. It's amazing.
But yeah, if this was intended to be like a spooky Halloween episode, there is a very kind of cartoon spookiness to all of this, and the use of the Adosian I thought was really good because
so good.
Such like a weird, almost monstrous design when you show it in like this dark, shadowy, ominous presentation. We never get this character's name, but the Division 14 medical specialist. I like that he showed up wearing a COVID mask. That was strangely normal to meet a new person and they're wearing a mask over their face.
Yeah, it took me quite a while to realize there was something odd about that. It just read as, yeah, of course he's wearing a mask. And I didn't.
Also, he has a cape. He is the first cape I've ever seen. Have you guys seen a cape before?
It's not really a cape. Is it? What do you call like a little short cape that just goes around like the
cloak?
shoulder?
I've heard sometimes. I don't know if that's the right word or not. I don't know. I'm no expert.
It's interesting. It splits where his arm comes out. It's cool.
It's convenient for the 3-armed Edosian people.
Yeah.
But yeah, this guy was really weird. But if you go back and watch the animated series, the Edosian character there, Eric's, doesn't get a ton of screen time, doesn't get a ton of dialogue, but he always seemed a little weird to me.
James Doohan did his voice, and it's speaking of robotic, he had a very interesting and robotic kind of voice, right? Like it was like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think they were going for just make it like weird and alien.
Yeah, it was super weird,
and that's such a complicated design. Like there's so many like angles on like that real angular bone structure of the face is just weird. It has like all like these bumps and ridges and stuff. It's like it seems like a terrible thing the animators to have to draw. It's like the most like elaborate design.
Somebody lost a bet.
They're like, oh, like the people in charge of the show will never approve this design. They'll never accept this one. Like, oh, damn it, not to draw it all the time.
I really hope we get. Have we ever gotten an Adosian like in live action Star Trek? I can't recall an instance.
They've been mentioned on DS9 and on Enterprise, but we have never ever had one. I think the best way to do that would be in a movie where you have like a little bit bigger budget to do like a CGI character. It would have to be done digitally,
right?
But I thought that with the Kelvin movies, I've been saying. R.I.P. Anton Yelchin, but I've been saying since he passed away, you know what? If they do another Kelvin movie and they're not going to have Chekhov at the Navigator station, they should just do a Kelvin version of Eric's and give us a on-screen Adosian.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, or
played by
bring back Carol Marcus.
I think Timothy Chalamet should play the Adosian character on in the Kelvin
he's
film.
busy with Dune. I want to make an adaptation of all these books, damn it. He doesn't get to do anything for the next decade except be sequels. But yeah, we're gonna just put a pin in the Boimler Mariner the dog story for now, and just we'll come back to them. Let's talk about like all the Mariner Ramsay stuff, and then we'll circle back to the B story stuff. But Mariner Ramsay, they go to the bog planet called Copa, I think.
And at the Copa.
I love the Starfleet hip waiters. I was like,
yeah,
it's so rare that for budget reasons, we never got to see much in the way. It was always rare to get to see specialized uniforms for specialized environments. Like they never had any spacesuits on TNG till they could afford to build them for First Contact. And then it took forever for us to get to the Arctic wear. So I was really excited just to get some hint of, oh, this is what you wear in swamps. Cool. I'm surprised the color is so bland. It's Starfleet. Yeah. I'd guess it'd be, silver or gray or something. But, and with little
like their own color, like the environmental suits in Discovery Season 2.
Yeah.
This is where Mariner kind of like starts off her plan of leaving a bad taste in Ramsay's mouth. First, she starts like embarrassing her by talking about some pranks they pulled at the Academy with a professor's car. I guess he had like an old classic car that they stole and drove into San Francisco Bay.
That's not at all like a Kelvin thing.
Strong Kelvin influences in this episode. And then when they beam down to the bog and Mariner goes off in the wrong direction, and the guy Pratchett, the Rigelian, he's like, "Hey, are you on a different mission or something, or are you coming with us?"
That's like her first thing. Like I was a little like surprised about how Mariner was such a F up compared to like
she's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, she is really doing it on purpose. That's true. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
I did wonder. I was like, this is odd, that, especially since I hadn't seen the funny look as foreshadowing. I was like, why is her mojo gone? Why has she lost her mojo? Is she actually trying too hard to impress her friend, and that is causing her to lose the mojo because she's only awesome when she's not trying, or what? I was really kind of confused. I was enjoying it, but I was confused. I'm glad they paid it off.
Starfleet boy, I know you like to read comments, so our live audience has chatted some stuff. We have like an explanation on what Boatrek was talking about. Do you want to read this, or I'll read it if you want?
Oh yeah, sure. I think Mariner is just trying not to follow what her parents expected from her all her life. Yeah.
And then
I think she has some
K.
That's the answer to hypo. Oh, I can't say it. But it's the fear. It's like the fear of responsibility. I have fear of responsibility. I admit it.
I don't like being in charge of stuff. Like that's I think about like being in charge of Tex-Trek is like the responsibility.
It's like that's like right. It's true.
I wish someone else would be in charge a lot of times. I don't think I would make a great captain. I think I'd be like a better first officer. I want to help a leader, but I don't like being the leader myself. But I keep finding myself in like a leadership situations, I guess. But yeah, I think that kind of makes Mariner more relatable. Like, I don't necessarily want to take on like more work and more responsibility.
It's true. At some point, you just want to retire to your cabin in the mountains and make Katarian eggs. that's like
be retired and be able to watch Star Trek is what I want.
You're already with Antonia, so you're kind of living the dream right now.
True.
And then Starfleet will come into the Nexus.
You should have named your dog after Kirk's dog. What was Kirk's dog?
Butler.
There you go.
I don't know why I know all those things. It's a little too much, but I really it's true.
What do you think of King Phoebus in the Osmos people?
I thought Phoebus might have been a little on the nose for a name, but as in amphibious. So I thought, really, you guys stayed up all night on that one, didn't you? Maybe it's just what the universal translator has done to the name. Maybe it's not really pronounceable in English or whatever.
He had kind of a gross voice too. Like he talked like he was like gargling liquid.
Yeah,
it's true.
And that crown is the most cartoon crown.
Well, I couldn't help but think of like Mario Brothers when I saw this, because like he seems like he would be like a Game Boy Edition Mario Brothers Big Boss or something.
But there was also funny the animation, like when they turn around and like swim away.
Right.
Yeah, so this is actually pretty nasty, because I think they later say that like this is like a waste filtration. So I think they're dealing with like alien waste. But they have
they sure have a lot of waste on that planet. It's a bog planet.
It all comes to this one bog. But a valve jammed. There's going to be like an explosion from the internal pressure, and Mariner's like, oh, I forgot the tricorders. So still being the fuck up.
Yeah.
But they solve it with a subsonic pulse. Which, okay, that's kind of like using like the sonic screwdriver is what it made me.
I have to admit, if this is actual poo, I absolutely would have worn a full environmental suit instead of just hip waders.
Right, it's
the thing that like always bothers me in TV shows and stuff, like when people like go into the sewers and there's like water and stuff in there. I'm like, you know what that water is? Like it like bothers me when I see like.
Well, there are two different types of sewers. Technically, there are also water drainage things are sewers. Yeah. So there's two different types of sewers out there, but I don't know if most Hollywood writers know that. So
all I know is like whenever like I'm watching like Ninja Turtles and whatever iteration, and I see like Ninja Turtles like underground in the city, and there's like liquid. I always think there's like poop in that liquid, and these turtles are disgusting.
Yeah, I don't know which kind of.
There's like down there like eating their pizza next to a bunch of poop. It's weird. It's weird to me. I don't like it.
Well, maybe they're just water drainage sewers and not toilet sewers, because those are actually generally run separately until they run through processing, and then maybe they'll mix them after that.
But luckily, the water filter is repaired, so kind of a low stakes mission. We did it. People have clean water.
I started to wonder, did Captain Freeman say, "Oh God, I'm not doing this mission. There's got to be something here, we'll go do the tactical assault plant seed job." So.
Yeah, she's like, okay, I'm gonna take the two people I like the most right now. So Ramsay and Shax, so you get spared. Let the underlings deal with the poop filter.
And if I pick for a babysitter to be Mariner's best friend, former best friend, then they'll drag Mariner down to the planet too. So win, says Mummy.
But yeah, everyone is kind of disappointed in Mariner, and being back to the ship, I actually talked to Captain Freeman, who is getting ready to plant these seeds. Very stealthy tactical mission, I guess. Weird, but they're supposed to rendezvous with another California class ship.
Well, when Ramsay turns around and makes a smart-ass comment about, they're getting to plant some seeds, woohoo! I realized Ramsay is alternate timeline Mariner. I'm not literally, but metaphorically.
They're cut from the same cloth. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. This is where Mariner could have been if she wanted to, and this is meant to be deliberately saying this is an alternate, Mariner that we could have had, and something diverged as a John Bar hinge that caused things to not our Mariner should not turn into this to Ramsay. And I thought that was very interesting. And it was when she made the joke I really realized, yeah, she's supposed to be the polished, shined up, well behaved Mariner. That's who she is.
Right.
Well, they're supposed to rendezvous with the Rubidoux or Rubidoux. How do you say that? It's a city in California.
Rub-a-dub-dub.
Rub-a-dub-dub. Rubidoux-dub-dub.
I'm going to say Rubidoux. If I'm wrong, someone let me know.
It is Rubidoux. The way that I think anyways, that's how Captain Ramsay was pronouncing it, as Rubidoux.
Yeah, but Mariner again continues to be the fuck up when instead of scanning for the missing ship, she activates the red alert. And Alexandra has an interesting comment. She also missed that look of reluctance that Mariner had in the ready room. Alexandra says, I was so vexed at this point, just like Brian, I missed that earlier look for Mariner. So yeah, I'm sure it was like kind of confusing. Like, why is she doing so terrible at everything?
Yeah.
All of a sudden?
I was definitely rolling around with that Austin Power Mojo disabled thing somehow. And I was like, somehow it's going to turn out to be that. But
they go to investigate the ship and they find it completely powered down. And they just assume that they are safe on the ship, but just don't have any power and can't respond. They beam aboard. It was cool to see like the gravity actually turned off because every time they go onto a disabled ship in Star Trek, it's like, oh, well, the artificial gravity is still working.
Yeah,
like Alien Web, Night Terror, stuff like that. But here, because it's animation, yeah, we can just have our characters float around. It's easy. And again, Mariner.
To some degree, it's easier because you don't have to animate the legs. The legs could just stay stationary.
Yeah, more static movement.
Just toss around.
But Mariner doesn't know how to operate gravity boots anymore. So this is where it should be like pretty obvious if it hasn't been up till this point. But Mariner is got to be doing this on purpose. But we find the crew of the Rubidoo in the cargo bay.
Really funny.
I like how they're hiding behind the crates, like they heard somebody opening the door. And like, quick, get out of sight!
They're all terrified. The captain is panicked. This
Captain Dayton.
Captain Dayton.
Yeah,
she was kind of a terrible captain, but we see a lot of terrible captains in Star Trek, unfortunately. I don't know. Do you think she's handling this better than, say, let's go with like the OG and do Commodore Decker?
I guess. I mean, I think Decker had cracked, but I think Decker had some pretty good reasons to crack. I know I would have cracked if I'd gone through what Decker had gone through. Matthew Decker had gone through. And we don't know exactly what happened to her. So I'm kind of willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, especially given that maybe she wasn't quite the A-list captain in the first place, according to Ramsay. So,
yeah, well, she is on a California class. So,
another California class. Just a lot of those in Star Trek all of a sudden. They're everywhere all of a sudden.
It's the new Miranda or Excelsior.
Yes.
But yeah, see, she tells them that there's something that is a danger to them that was feeding on the power of the ship. That's why they turned everything off. So when Degra and company restore the warp core and power everything back up, lights come on, gravity comes on, but also this weird glowy energy snot starts like growing out of the ship and trying to grab the water. She's like glowing green and cracking and falling apart. Visually interesting. As far as like what's actually happening, I'm not clear at all, and they never really explain it. It definitely the visuals work.
Oh yeah, no, this was where I was like, I was on the edge of my seat. I was worried. I was excited. I realized I didn't care about the jokes anymore. I just wanted to know if they were going to get away from this amazingly cool looking monster thing. And I liked the way that, why didn't they answer their communicators? Because their communicators could have powered the green fungus thing. So they switched up their communicators. Oh yeah, it all makes sense actually.
Yeah.
The only thing that didn't make sense is I would think there would be a little bit more people than that on a California class ship.
Maybe they're in the other cargo bays. Yeah. I mean, they didn't put now there's a kid there. Does that mean all California classes have families or just this one, or what's going on?
They don't explain it. So he's like the only kid. So I don't know if that was like for some reason they were transporting some civilians or what.
Wouldn't it be funny if like in season 2 or season 3 you get like a flashback to this mission, and that creature that we thought was like this like wonderful like beautiful light creature was like horrifying them. It's like another Halloween episode, and this kid it's like aliens, right? And so this kid is like she's like Sigourney Weaver gone totally mad from whatever horrors this like creature did to it.
I think the kid won a contest to get a cameo on the show.
It's true.
I like this part though. I really enjoyed this. How Mariner just snaps back into badass mode.
Yeah.
But as soon as there's danger, as soon as the stakes are high, because no one cares about like the bog mission. No one cares about like the water filter. But as soon as like there's actual like lives in jeopardy, she turns into the Starfleet badass again. And I liked her like punching out this hysterical captain and just taking charge. This is like that's the Mariner thing to do. She'd be like, okay, rank doesn't matter. You're gonna get.
She also like picks up the kid. It's very heroic.
Yeah, it's like she's like the protector. She's like the guardian, and she's just like this lowly ensign. And then Ramsay is like, oh, what the hell? Like, this is the Mariner I remember. Why haven't you been acting like this all along? And she calls her out. So, Ramsay is smart. Ramsay's not an idiot. Ramsay is smart. Ramsay's like, yeah, you were doing this on purpose. And we get that little insight into Mariner here where she says, I don't like everyone screaming at me to rank up. Why can't I just be a badass ensign? And I was like, oh, that's a neat thing to present in Star Trek, because this franchise all about people that are so like career oriented. We've never heard someone say like, well, maybe I like being an ensign. Maybe I like working in the lower decks.
Yeah, it was very cool. And I feel like this is like this kind of like, again, going back from episode 1, it like has dealt with this like kind of, never talked about segment of Star Trek or people in Starfleet and in the Federation, because we always focus on the bridge crew. And it is doing a good job of presenting another tone or another another like perspective is the best word, I guess.
I guess the question I have is what is it Mariner gets out of being an ensign that she wouldn't get more of at a higher position? She likes to boss people around. She doesn't just like to follow orders. She actually resents having people above her in authority and likes to actually order people around. So what is it she gets out of being an ensign? And that's my big question.
I think she likes being like maybe under the radar and kind of out of the spotlight, where she'd have like the high ranking people.
But she does. But she basically hogs the scene in every scene she's in. Look at me. She starts acting out and getting everyone to pay attention to her. So it's not like she doesn't want people paying attention to her.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like,
I think that she might really, aside from like shirking responsibility being her kind of like natural mode, because her parents were probably so like, heavy on the responsibility throughout her, childhood or whatever, because being Starfleet, career people and stuff like that. So I think there's like that level of it, but I also think maybe she enjoys like just being a pod captain, like just like kind of being a captain of a tiny worker crew. And that's
like a really junior lieutenant or something. She could be the junior lieutenant who runs Alpha, that branch of Alpha.
Then you probably have to be the one like going to meetings with like the department head and
right. She just gets to be told what to do, and she has like a couple people that are inexperienced.
Yeah, but that just means her boss, her junior lieutenant, is going to bring them all in for a meeting and say, "Here's what we're doing today, guys." So she's still going to the meeting. She just doesn't.
They put more thought into, and they just haven't revealed it yet.
I'm not saying this is a complaint. I'm saying I want to get your guys' feedback and theories as to what's going on. I do think they have an answer. We just haven't been.
That's my theory, but I also think that like she's gonna. I don't know. I feel like it's leaning towards something tragic, and I hope not. That's just the thing I'm seeing there.
Yeah, no, it could be. I again, I'm not complaining. I just wanted to get your guys' feedback on what you think is her reasons, what she wants to be, why she wants to be an ensign. But
in the chat, Pastel Pirate suggests higher up means more expectations.
Being
she
in
does seem
Starfleet means expectations, though. Why is she in Starfleet if she doesn't want expectations?
It does seem like she can rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
By the way,
Quite a-
on the record, you didn't sound like you were complaining to me,
Oh,
Brian.
okay. Oh, cool.
I can confirm that there is the California class has bridge windows instead of a classic view screen. So I was a little sad to see that because I prefer the view screen over the window, but whatever. Mariner calls Rutherford. For some reason, I didn't really get why they needed to use his transporter to beam everyone. But
yeah, I thought I must have missed a line of dialogue, but I missed it both times.
the energy was very Kelvinish here. It's so fast paced where we see like the bridge being ripped apart by the glowy energy snot. And she calls Rutherford and she's like, she calls him Ruddy, but she's like, we need you to beam us now. And then I loved like just like the fast paced energy of like Rutherford like running down the corridor. It was kind of like when Chekhov has to beam Sulu and Kirk in Star Trek 09.
And I was kind of like, this is the next generation era. You could just site-to-site transport to your transporter room. And that's assuming you can't remote control it from the bridge or wherever like Harry Kim does.
Well, I think they try to turn the power back down on the ship because all the lights go off again.
Father, I guess I have to watch it again because I could have sworn there was an explanation as to why they had to use Rutherford's specific transporter because of something about the dampening something. I don't remember, but I felt like they explained it real quick and then he had to go do the modifications or something like that.
I'm not sure. Maybe, but he does get them beamed over. And they all have like the weird phasey effect that that Boimler had. But I like
relieved.
They're all like, "Oh, this is weird," and then he's like, "It's just cosmetic," and then Captain Ramsay's like, "It's just cosmetic," and they all go back to like cheering and being happy again.
And again, that feels like a Captain Mariner thing. If Mariner was trying to distill the situation, it's just cosmetic. I can, again, we feel like Ramsay's is the Mariner that Mariner could have been.
It's very illustrative of how there's really no difference between these two people, except for the one person has some kind of like hang up or fear or like, that's the only thing. Yeah.
PJ has something interesting in the chat. He says that this must be from some behind the scenes stuff that I missed. But voice actress Tawny Newsome, who plays Mariner, Tawny Newsome explained that Mariner is afraid of being responsible for the lives on the ship, but is fine with hovering in the middle. And I could see it being like kind of a guilt thing where like maybe she's gotten someone hurt before and doesn't want that responsibility. We did see that flashback a few episodes ago I'd forgotten about, but that flashback to the Olympic class.
Oh, yeah.
Where she played matchmaker for her friend, and then like she ended up getting like ate by that shapeshifter. So there's a little bit of like guilt there.
That's actually pretty. That's true. That's pretty traumatic. If my friend got eaten by someone I connected them with, it would make me feel pretty traumatized.
And I'm okay with that, but we do need to, at some point peel back that onion and explicitly state this is or these sets of events or something is what's happened.
So we'll get it. I think it's going to be way down the line, but I think we'll get it.
We are 7 episodes into the show. We have now seen 3 different on-screen California class starships. And 2 of them have been destroyed now. We lost one, and we lost one here when it transforms into an alien life form. I like that it was friendly. It's a friendly alien life form. Very Star Trek idea there, but
yeah, it was kept grabbing people because it wanted to communicate with them or something. I'm guessing. But yeah, I love this alien. I love the way it looks as it's ripping through the ship. I love the tension. I love the visuals. I love the way it rips out of the outer hull of the ship and turns into this big jellyfish looking thing. It was on all levels. I thought this was visually just a stunning, exciting, as well written as any giant alien thing in Star Trek that threatens the crew has ever been, as far as being interesting.
I heard some people compare it to the Farpoint creature.
Yep. It's very similar.
A little similar visually, but they're not the same thing. Like that.
No.
That was more like a giant squid, like just tentacles. They're like a jellyfish. It was a jellyfish.
Well, this thing looks pretty jellyfish. It just has more tentacles on it than the other one.
Looks like it's more made out of like energy than made out of
this one's like a Man of War jellyfish, and the other one's like a like a whatever standard type of jellyfish.
At first, I
the
wondered.
flying spaghetti monster.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it.
I mean, the creatures are clearly related because both of them can just feed on raw energy to supply, like the one on Farpoint was feeding on geothermal energy, I think it was. And then they just shoot it with a phaser, as I recall, and charge it up that way. And it can take convert phaser energy, and it's able to convert energy into matter and do all this stuff. So the idea that it could that it can drain all the energy out of the ship makes quite a bit of sense. They do have a line saying it's not like nothing. We haven't seen this creature before, so that means it can't be exactly the same as the Farpoint alien.
Put it in the Gorn eggs as like a same thing or a similar thing, because like, well, it's clearly a new thing. Let's get back to the Division 14 ship, and we'll just talk about the Boimler Tendi story.
The death ship.
Isn't that much? If you take all the Boimler Tendi stuff and just throw it in together, it's actually not that much to talk about. They show up on the ship, they meet the freaks, and that's kind of funny. Some of these designs are just.
Oh, I didn't see the duck guy until now. That's crazy.
It's like that's funny. Duck or like DuckTales or something.
Howard the Duck.
Yes.
There's a guy who his nipples and his eyes have been inverted. They're like his nipples on his chest and or he has nipples in his face and eyes on his chest.
Oh my goodness.
The kind of the main character, the main freak that we get, he is half man, half a young child.
And he's wearing an old uniform. And at first I thought that was, especially given how the story plays out, didn't make any sense. But then they say he claims they've been on the ship for months.
Yes. And those uniforms were in service like
months ago.
Yeah, because this is only a year after Nemesis.
Yeah, less than a year. I think Nemesis is late. I think Nemesis is late 2379, as I recall. At least if you go by star dates. So
there's like 6 months before this. I don't know what star date we're at lower decks now, but
yeah. So, but then that raises the question that you generally don't see passengers stuck on a ship for months in Star Trek.
Well, unless like you need the joke to be like, oh, like we never got off the ship. So what cracked me up was seeing the Delta radiation in the pipe chair. I got
apparently Starfleet has the Starfleet OSHA hasn't done anything about that problem since the mid 23rd century.
Often.
Also, Father, does this pike chair dequalify the Discovery pike chair because it's a callback to the original series, or what's the deal there?
Because in my head canon, the one we see in Discovery was like a prototype that he's in before he's in like the real one.
Okay, I like that. That's it. You always have the best headcanon explanation.
I my way out of some sticky ones. So, but yeah, we get the transporter accident where and she's like, "We have 2 of everything," and he's like, "Well, not quite everything," or something.
At first, I was like, "That's stupid," and I said, "Well, whatever. We had 2 Vics. This is no dumber than 2 Vics." But
and then no, I don't know which one was my favorite. I take back what I said a second ago. It might have been the Delta radiation. I actually think it was Anthony when we meet Anthony. Catfish.
Yes, the transport frog in space. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So, from the Voyager episode Threshold, often considered to be one of the worst, or actually the worst episodes of Star Trek.
Easily the worst TNG, easily the worst Voyager episode. That's pretty undisputed, I think. But I love that, and they're not even sure. It could just be a weird alien that they picked up. That we think it might be a person.
We get like the kind of again like the kind of the cartoon horror vibe, kind of like Simpsons Treehouse of Horror or something like that, where we get the revelation of like, oh no, like this is the farm. We never leave. And
oh, look at
always
that shot.
Scary lightning. scary lightning and scary clouds that just follow the ship.
And why this is a weird experimental ship, but we never see it do anything weird or experimental aside from taking months to get anywhere.
Experimental ship that goes like really slow.
Yeah.
I really want to know more about the ship though, and Division 14.
maybe
we discovered subspace. It's like normal subspace, only slower.
Maybe we'll get a Division 14 show at some point.
I hope they make it's a Division 14 shirt at the very least. I hope we get one of those.
The freaks have decided that they've had enough. Freaks fight back. Freaks fight back. They all start chanting. We're going to have a mutiny. And I like that way that they edited that, where Boimler kind of reluctantly starts cheering with them. And he's going, freaks fight back, freaks fight back. And then it cuts to him in the captain's office where he's like, yeah, freaks fight back. That's what we were all chanting. It's a funny type of editing they do in animated comedy stuff.
Yeah,
Boimler is such a tattletale. I'm so disappointed in him. It's funny though. It's really funny, but he's such a tattletale.
Starfleet, I kind of agree with like the rules of the playground and like not being a rat. But like a mutiny is kind of a big deal, and he wasn't trying to get them in trouble. He's just like, hey, you need to do something so they don't mutiny. I think Boimler is actually kind of in the right.
That was the point I was going to make. Everything Boimler says we should do when he gets on that ship is the correct thing to do. And by the end of it, everyone's admitted he was right and they were wrong. Right. Yet the way he does it is still very Boimler. It feels like his character. It's not like they changed his character to make him the hero or the right. Yeah. He does actually make the right decisions. He makes the right decisions and stays in character. And I like that a lot.
It's enjoyable to see Boimler, get things right and not just be like the incompetent crybaby who's always whining and crying and is a total failure at everything.
Yeah, it goes completely wrong here, and I love that the Adosian captain goes nuts.
Yeah, he just loses his shit. He's like, "What? Smashes his desk. He grabs a phaser rifle.
Now, to be fair, sometimes when horrible things happen to Starfleet crew members, they do a Barclay and take over the ship and fly to the other side of the galaxy, or they become Gary Mitchell and start making everyone worship them. So I can kind of see how he's got a hair trigger about, oh no, it's on. It's Gary Mitchell time. We better get this, knock him down fast. Give me the phaser rifle.
Kidnap the captain and impregnate her with their lizard babies.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I guess if you look at the broader scope of Star Trek, he's probably not overreacting. Though this did make me think of a question: is there anyone else on that ship? Are there a crew on that ship?
Well, we see him. He has some security personnel that are backing him up.
Oh, okay. I missed that the first time. All right, that's the answer to my question.
But going back to Boimler tattletaling, he kind of gets his comeuppance here when the captain kind of throws him under the bus and throws him back to the mob.
His Edosian weirdness, where he didn't understand the social circumstances, the repercussions of what he was doing, but he's like, no, I know you were planning a mutiny. They try to play it off. They're like, oh, these are just props for our musical. Bullshit. Boimler told me we were having a mutiny, and I love Brad Boimler over here. This guy right here, he was so good for telling.
Two fingers. He uses two of his hands. To point at it. It's really great. It's
this dog pile on Boimler, and I'm like, what is this? Is kind of irresponsible for the Adosian to just let these weirdos go crazy like this. I don't know. Maybe it's just
he confines them all to quarters. He says they're all confined to quarters, but neither him nor his goons confine anybody to quarters.
Mutinous traitors are defined or are confined to quarters, and I'm just gonna leave and expect you to follow these orders.
Yeah.
It's just expedience for the joke. It falls apart if you think about it too hard. But
he's I'm like you, but why does he lift his shirt up? Like, it's obvious that he's weird because he's glowing and he has to lift his...
They throw him in the airlock and he like stops glowing. Yeah, he like pulls up his shirt to like make sure like he can still like his body is there. He's like, really I'm not a freak anymore. And they're like, congratulations, we're gonna kill you anyways. Enjoy your walk into space. Boimler falls out of the airlock when they open the hatch, and it turns out that they've arrived at the farm. And it's
that was like an amazing gag. I loved that he's going to get blown out into space. The door's opening, and he's on the planet. That was brilliant. I loved it both times. That was the comedic highlight of the show for me.
It gave me a sense of like relief, like a genuine sense of relief. It was really funny.
Because I was kind of freaked out by like the idea of the farm, and it's like, are they really just going to keep all of these poor victims on the ship and just like confine them here? Like that's so like cruel and like un-Starfleet. And when this part happened, I thought like, oh, maybe this entire thing was like some type of like holodeck program that they put Boimler on because like somehow like going through this experience like cured him.
He needed to be scared that he was about to die.
Yeah, or like something like that. That's what I was kind of thinking, but obviously not the case when the Adosian and company come off of the shuttle, and the half rascal is what I called him in my notes. But he's like, boy, do I have egg on my face now. Sorry, I tried to mutiny against you. the Adosian, he's like, yeah, maybe we should like change the lighting in the ship and make it look not like so like terrible and scary. It's like, yeah, you think.
And maybe deliver the crew members more rapidly instead of just tooling around forever, keeping them locked up for months on board the ship.
And he ends with like that weird sinister laugh. Oh, that's just how I laugh. What do y'all think of like the resort? It looked kind of fun. I
kind of want to have a transporter accident now.
Yeah, I do like that we once again affirm that the Federation actually is a pretty nice place to live, and it's not all dark and scary. And look, even if bad things happen to you, you get to go to this,
taken care of
farm.
Yeah, you get taken care of, and all of that. Yeah.
I do like that.
The Delta radiation victims.
Yeah,
that's the dumbest thing ever. Like, it's kind of dumb to like bring that chair back with like where someone can only communicate in binary with flashing that light. But they have the character we saw earlier, and they have like a bikini strapped onto the a bikini and a bikini top strapped onto her Delta radiation chair, and also like two other guys that are there. They have like Hawaiian shirts wrapped around their chairs. They're just like filling at the resort.
Well, I have to admit, if I was stuck in one of those chairs, I'd absolutely want a big Hawaiian shirt to hang around mine. But I don't know about the bikini outfit. That even if I was a girl, I don't know if that would be what I'd go choose out of the possibilities for decorating my chair.
But and then the close up of Anthony at the spot. And rubbed down with some oil. Like the way that thing is like laying there and breathing, is like that deranged look on its face. It's like this.
I still, in my head, canon, Anthony, they think Anthony is some victim of transwarp drive, but Anthony is really just this random alien that they got confused and picked up and are trying to turn it into a Starfleet officer. And it's like, what?
We get the conclusion of the story with the dog.
This is so good. I love this so much.
Yeah, the payoff, the escalation reaches the apex when the dog begins to speak and stand on its hind legs like a human. And then it's like, oh, they can't go any crazier than that. It's like, no, it's gonna fly. Fly away. Bye.
I like how when you lose your dog, your parents tell you it's gone to live on the farm, and that's where this dog goes.
Right. That's so true.
And then Tendi finally gets it. Tendi finally gets it when Boimler is like, no, like dogs don't walk or talk or like anything like that. Like, she's like, you mean they don't shoot lightning out their mouth? And he's like, no. And Tendi's like, oh, you actually were a freak. And then the dog is like, I know, I just didn't want you to worry about me. She's such a good girl.
The dog is not just sapient, but it's very sapient, able to reflect on someone else's emotional structure and take it into itself and say, if I was Tendi, what would I want somebody to say to me? That's most. There are some adults that can't do that level of reasoning. So.
And of course, poor Boimler, he has to have his Charlie Brown moment in every episode. So, like, I guess like the nurses on this planet are like, I guess like they're into the freaks that show up here.
Yeah,
like,
they're into some freaky stuff.
Yeah, like if that's your kink. I mean, like I'm not going to shame you, like. Sure, like it's kind of ableist to just like call all these people freaks, but you know, like I'm glad some people might be into that, and this is, I guess, is like the right place for them to hang out. But then he gets cock blocked by Half Rascal. He's like, he shouldn't even be here. He's not a freak anymore.
I love that he's called Half Rascal. You made that up.
It did occur to me that would Half Rascal have been more entertaining if half of his uniform had been all retro and the other half had been all modern as a design decision. When I was thinking about his outdated uniform, I thought, well, maybe that was because of the timey-wimey or thing that messed him up. And I said, well, then wouldn't half the uniform be modern? But
yeah, then Boimler gets literally thrown onto a shuttlecraft, sent back to the Cerritos. And the first thing he does is run to the bar, run to Rutherford, and he's like, you have to mess me up again. You have to do something to make me a freak again. And then Tendi actually getting to see like an actual dog and not a weird science experiment. And she's like, hi, how are you? And the dog licks her, which a dog is prone to do if you're like that close to the face.
Close to the, that's true.
Oh, she licked me. What a weirdo.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
The final beat is between Mariner and Ramsay when we get like a little bit more of that Mariner stuff where she's like, I'm just trying to figure it out. Maybe I want to be a captain someday. Maybe I won't. We'll just wait and see.
Yeah. I guess to me, this scene and the whole story revelations about her, you now have to go back and look over everything Mariner's done and say how much of that was done just to make sure I don't get promoted. And it's not actually what she wanted to do or what she felt was natural to do. It was just what she felt she had to do. Right. And so how much of what we've seen is all just an act? I mean, clearly some of the sarcasm and stuff is just inherently her. And I think she'd always be a little rebellious against authority no matter what. But even the fact that she's doing this is rebellious. But and some of it is designed to wind up Mummy. But there's clearly a lot of it is just a big act to make sure she never gets promoted. And she is so... She would rather ruin her friendship or basically ruin her friend's view of her and her friend's, possibly even her friendship with her friend, than to just say, no, I don't want to be a first officer. That again comes back to Mariner's got issues. Well, Mariner can't just tell her one of her good friends, I don't want to be a first officer. Instead, she goes through all of this dog and pony show. Now, admittedly, she's been doing that for a while. It's kind of her default setting now. So I that somewhat justifies it. But
it goes back to the first episode when Mariner says to Boimler in that introduction scene with Tendi, Mariner says to Boimler, I'm a complicated person.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we needed this little tag at the end with Ransom.
I know we didn't.
Trying to flirt with Ramsay because they kind of like already hit a really good high note to end on, but because like one little last gag about like men being flirty horn dogs and.
Look how overly here's some toxic masculinity in Starfleet for you, just in case you were thinking we were too goody two shoes.
I mean, like, I guess it was a little weird how he was like, the great Captain Ramsay or whatever he said. Like, I'd sure like to buy you a drink. I mean, I guess like his approach could have been like a little bit more like, "Oh, Captain Ramsay, I've been looking forward to meeting you. Can I get you a drink and talk for a minute?" But
And he just grabs her.
yeah, he does put his hand on her. You're right. Yeah, that was crossing boundaries. He misread. He misread that situation.
She's definitely not amused, and I love that she just like takes it, to the next level, and just like, karate moves him to the table.
Keep your hands to yourself unless you're sure the other person wants you not to.
Yeah.
And he he makes a comment as if this is a game they play, but in the context, since she doesn't reciprocate or reinforce that idea, is that just what he's telling himself in his head, which just makes it worse? Like he does this for all the time.
To like the other people, like people who watched that.
Yeah, well, it still comes off as dysfunctional. So.
Let's go ahead and knock out these.
By the way, I am wearing my Ransom shirt.
Oh, nice. That's the third episode, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I need to check my mailbox, see if I got my badgie shirt yet. Let's go ahead and like knock out these Gorn eggs real fast before we sign off. But I'll just run through the entire episode and point out all the.
Oh yeah, this is the. Sorry, never mind. I think you're going to bring up bring it up here.
I'm going to run through the episode from beginning to end and point out all the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections.
That's right.
But the one we already talked about from the very beginning with the black suit mission and the roulotte seeds that they're planning. Of course, we saw these suits on the Next Generation, and also the roulotte seed actually comes from the Deep Space Nine episode Homecoming, the first episode of season 2, when Major Kira and Chief O'Brien have to go across Cardassian lines to rescue that Bajoran from the prison camp.
That was a good episode.
When they're detected by the Cardassians flying to the prison, Kira says like, "Oh, well, we're translating these roulotte seeds for some goal, and if you detain us, he's going to be very angry." And Chief O'Brien's like, "I've never even heard of that goal." And Kira's like, "Me neither. I made them up." But yeah, that was roulotte seeds. What she said they were transporting.
So is it roulotte seeds in this special operation is a ruse, a cover? Is it also a cover for Freeman? And they're actually up to something else, but they're on an open channel?
Like actual plants, like actual like seeds that they
well, yeah, but they need that. They're on an open transmission, so people are monitoring. Though you think they would wear the suits then if that was the case.
Right.
The idea of the babysitter captain, we talked about this before, but yeah, Mariner actually name drops Captain Edward Jellicoe. The transporter being out of phase thing, they've played around with that before in Star Trek. The last time I heard it described as subspace was in the Star Trek Enterprise season 4 episode Daedalus or Daedalus, however you say it. With what was that guy? Emmerich, the inventor of the transporter on Earth. But yeah, his son Quinn was trapped in kind of phased out of normal space and into subspace. Rutherford points out that he's off by 1 millicochrane. The cochrane is a unit of measurement of subspace distortion.
Yeah.
So
you need one whole cochrane to go the speed of light.
Yeah, the poor Quinn back on Enterprise, he was distorted by I would think much more than 1 millicochrane. He had a lot more subspace distortion.
Yeah. And Roe, and there were Roe and Geordi too, of course.
Right.
Yeah, but that wasn't caused by a transporter though. Was it?
That was the Romulan
It was the intersection of the transporter, though. The transporter played a part in the process, as I recall.
But the millicochrane, or the Cochrane, named after warp drive creator Zefram Cochrane.
Yep.
The alien visitors from Ramsay's crew included a Rigelian, like we mentioned, with Lieutenant Pratchett. This is the first Rigelian we've seen on lower decks. They were previously seen on Enterprise. The idea of Division 14 like the way that it's named, of course, that is very similar to Section 31. And Boimler confused Division 14 for the Time Travel Police. They're actually called the Department of Temporal Investigations. We saw them on Deep Space Nine. We talked about the Adosian character. This is the first Adosian on screen since Star Trek: The Animated Series, Season 2 episode, The Counterclock Incident, when we saw Eric's of the animated series. The ship that the Adosian commands, the Osler, as it's called, it's named after a Canadian physician who is often described as the father of modern. I think kind of reformed, doctors are like educated and trained. Ramsay is telling a story about like fighting Borg, who no one talks about it, but they smell like trash bags, and said that they were able to defeat them with Vulcan Jiu-Jitsu. And I think that's a reference to Sus Mana, which T'Pol used. She beat up Klingons with it. Michael Burnham also fights Klingons with it. The Rubido and also Ramsay's ship that we don't see, but we hear mentioned, the Oakland. I assume it's a California class too, because Rubido and Oakland, both real cities in California. So keeping the tradition of naming California class ships after cities in California.
Shout out to my family in California.
Yeah, family. I feel like everywhere I mention Starfleet Boys, like, oh yeah, I have family there.
We're all over the place.
Half Rascal, his accident, he said it came from like an alien horse bite, but he's like really old in part of his body and really young in another part. That happened to crewman Daniels in Star Trek Enterprise when he showed up on the ship, and like some of his organs were like 90 years old and others were like for a newborn. So he was kind of timey-wimey all over the place. And Rascal's saying that he's half Rascal. I think that was a nod to the Next Generation episode, Rascal. Or Rascals, plural, rather. And the two people being combined into one, as we mentioned, in a transporter accident that happened before with Tuvix. A very hot topic episode that has gotten more conversation as time goes on.
It also happened in the motion picture, but it didn't live long.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we didn't see it, so which made it a lot scarier, actually. Of course, the Delta radiation chair, that is clearly a connection to Captain Christopher Pike.
Yeah, but with the scar being on the exact same side of the face, this is definitely an OSHA problem here. OSHA needs to get his ass in gear. Something's wrong with the way these starships are made.
Whatever the equivalent of OSHA is. Yeah. And Anthony the Catfish ties back to Tom Paris and Captain Janeway in another infamous Voyager episode, Threshold. And those are all of the Gorn eggs I found. Of course, if
there was one other.
What is it, Brian?
When they're trying to fix the the water purifier and they don't have the tricorders and they do the sonic whatever it was, the gadget they use is clearly the engineering tool that Geordi was using all over the place in Star Trek. And I think it also cameoed as a medical tool on a couple of occasions.
I don't like pointing this out though. I don't want to like pay attention like every time like they use like a tricorder.
Well,
the reference?
Yeah, if it had just been a tricorder, I certainly wouldn't have brought it up. But it wasn't just a random bit of scribbling gadget. It was a very specific gadget that there's a whole page on Ex Astra or whatever on all the places that prop has shown up in Star Trek.
I know they've also like used some of Chief O'Brien's tools on some episodes of Lower Decks.
I have a question. Does the Freaks movie reference count as a Gorn egg?
No, that's not in Star Trek.
Yeah. All right. That would just be an Easter egg.
That would just be an Easter egg, or just a reference.
Anytime something like looks like another movie, there's enough Gorn eggs in the show that I don't feel the need.
I thought it was a big one. I thought it was a nice homage to the 1939. I haven't seen the 20.
Well, I mean, if we want to get into that, then there was the Thing was clearly referenced as well, and the Fly, and so forth.
We talked about the Fly too. So this was the horror movie episode. Like this was the Halloween episode. I feel like this is it. This is my Halloween episode of Lower Decks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's everything that we caught. If you caught anything else, as always, let us know. And just one thing that I wanted to point out in here, let me scroll back up in the comments because I wasn't able to talk about it earlier, but the Osmos people, Pastel Pirate says that they look like the salamander native to Mexico. Axalta, I don't know how to say it, but
well, you know what that means. The people of Mexico have cracked the secret of Transwarp Drive.
well, no, not the catfish thing, but the people in the bog world.
King.
Well, those look pretty salamander too, but yeah. I thought there was quite a few salamandery type things going on in this episode. But
PJ says that they destroy ships quite beautifully in the show, and I agree with that as well. Oh, those guys,
yeah,
these people. So,
King Phibius,
King of the salamander people. But we're going to go ahead and sign off. We will be back next week, of course, to discuss episode 8. I'm looking forward to that because Mike McMahon said he's very proud of these last 3 episodes. So let's see what they're about. I think there's some big stuff coming.
So there's 2 more episodes or 3 more? 3 more. Okay.
Yeah, so 8, 9, and 10.
Or
10 total.
8, 9, and 10. Yeah, can't do
math. Yeah,
math is hard.
I think we're going to be seeing Q. I think we're going to be seeing Romulans. I think we're going to be seeing possibly a certain captain in command of a ship called the Titan.
Woo-hoo.
So I'm not for sure, but we'll find out. And anyone who wants to stay up and hang out with us, you should all go check out Starfleet Boy right now because we're about to be streaming live over there in a few minutes.
Well, no, it's going to be a little later than that.
Later tonight.
Let's go like maybe 10:45, guys, because Starfleet Boy has to eat.
Okay. In about 30 minutes. So wherever you are, 30 minutes from now, if you're watching us live, set an alarm for 30 minutes, and then you can hang out with us.
It's a flexible show. But TQIF.
But it's been real. It's been fun. And as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.